heart of the Middle East lies in the desert. The deserts of Arabia, of Egypt, of Libya. Since the Turks were driven out at the end of the First World War, the heart of the Middle East has been guarded by slender forces of British and colonial troops and a few squadrons of the Royal Air Force. In the summer of 1940, the peace of the Egyptian sky is broken. We are sweeping the Red Sea for magnetic mines. We land more troops to protect the Suez Canal and to stand in the Western Desert against a new empire which is massing forces in Libya, the fascist empire of Mussolini's Italy.
Roma, the 10th of June, 1940. Il Duce has declared war on Britain and France. Our young men are ready to join Marshal Graziani's regiments in North Africa. Il Duce will lead us from the Tiber to the Nile. We have our orders: fidere, obiere, combattore, to believe, to obey, to fight.
We have our orders too. Middle East forces are to defend Egypt and the Suez Canal and to maintain communications through the Red Sea. For all this, we have Wavell's 40,000 men and 29 squadrons of obsolescent aircraft. Less than half of them are in the Western Desert. All the same, we attack.
December the 9th, 1940. The first desert offensive.
December the 16th. The Italians have been driven out of Egypt. January the 1st, 1941. We advance into Libya. Bardia falls on the 5th, Tobruk on the 22nd. Benghazi on the 6th of February. In 2 months, we've driven nearly 1,000 miles across the blue and broken Graziani's legions.
Empires pass, but the desert remains a stronger enemy, gripping the tires of our lorries and swallowing our laborious tracks. Although we've cleared the air of Italians, we've no great fleet of transport planes to carry our force forward and hold securely the victory we've touched. Our few troop carriers can fly only to those in greatest need, and all the rest is drifted into sand. As the year turns and the Italians falter, the Germans move into the Mediterranean.
Fliegerkorps 10 will be based in Sicily. Fliegerführer Afrika will have over 100 warplanes to drive the British out of Libya. Luftflotte 4 will strike down through Greece. Fliegerkorps 8 und 9 will send over 600 aircraft to invade Crete.
Wird ostwärts der Höhen in diesem Raum abgesetzt. Hier liegt Adorf mit dem wichtigen Kraftwerk. 5. Kompanie hat den Auftrag, von hier aus dieses vom Feind gesicherte Werk anzugreifen und zu zerstören. Verstanden?
We have the air transport, the paratroops, the fighters and the bombers to drive the British out of the Middle East. We will attack Crete on May the 20th at dawn.
By the time the first Germans land, the Luftwaffe has shot our air force out of the Cretan sky. They throw down transport after transport, regardless of loss, until the island is full of Germans. Our troops fight on with rifles and machine guns, but by the end of May, resistance is flattened out.
War Office Communique, 1st of June, 1941. After 12 days of what has undoubtedly been the fiercest fighting in the war, it was decided to withdraw our forces from Crete. Although the losses we inflicted on the enemy's troops and aircraft have been enormous, it became clear that our naval and military forces could not be expected to operate indefinitely without more air support than could be provided from our bases in Africa.
The Germans who hold Crete are fewer than the Germans who attacked it. They have lost the spearhead of their paratroops and glider troops, and they will never launch another airborne invasion. But they have won an island commanding the eastern Mediterranean and the approaches to Egypt, the island where the civilization of Europe was born.
But while the German flag is raised on our northern flank, the Italian flag is lowered in the south. The Italians in Abyssinia have cracked, and soldiers and airmen from South and East Africa have fought their way across the mountains to Addis Ababa.
Our southern flank is safe, and with it a new air supply route across Africa. What we lose in the Mediterranean, we gain on the equator.
We pioneered this route for British Airways before the war, slap across Africa from west to east. Now we're cutting more airstrips in the jungle so that we can ferry fighters and light bombers from the Atlantic ports to Egypt. If you miss one of these strips, you've got a choice of jungle or swamp or scrub to ditch down in. Your next landing ground's at least 400 or 500 miles away. We've built a flying bird base on the west coast to guard the ships that bring the land planes in from Britain and the States. It's not a bad station. They send you home when you've had malaria twice. We run a flying boat service too from here across the Congo to the Nile, to provide some sort of airlift to the Middle East. The fighters fly the shortest route, only 3,500 miles, across the Gold Coast, Nigeria, French Equatorial Africa and the Sudan to Egypt.
With the Mediterranean almost closed to us and the Cape route long and dangerous, this is our only quick way of getting new aircraft to the Western Desert for our second offensive. It's a year since Wavell's men attacked the Italians. Now the sand is furrowed with the moving tracks of our second winter offensive. And this time we can call up a desert air force of greater strength. 17 Royal Air Force squadrons, 2 of the Fleet Air Arm, 6 South African, 1 Rhodesian, 2 Australian, 1 Free French. Operation Crusader is launched on the 18th of December, 1941. Our objective, to relieve Tobruk, retake Cyrenaica, and drive on to Tripoli.
Air Minister communique. Throughout yesterday, our fighter and bomber aircraft incessantly harassed the westward retreat of the enemy forces in Cyrenaica. Heavy casualties were inflicted on enemy troops, and a large number of vehicles were left in flames.
This time it ain't just the ITARs. The Luftwaffe has a bash at us, then the Afrika Korps, then the Luftwaffe again. Our annual swan up the desert ends with our usual panic back again. Who wants this much sand anyway?
The Germans hold firm in Libya, and as another year starts, the initiative is with Rommel. And by the end of June, the 8th Army has been thrown back to El Alamein. The Afrika Korps are within 60 miles of the Nile. Now the Luftwaffe turns north across the Mediterranean against Malta, an island so small that from the air it looks like a leaf floating on an Italian lake. Here is the last link in our quickly breaking chain across Mussolini's Mare Nostrum, and our last threat to Rommel's supply lines from Europe to Africa. Here still, after 2 years of bombardment, Malta GC.
This is our city, the city of Valletta, standing around the grand harbor as it had stood for hundreds of years. In the old days, the British fleet used to anchor here, but now hardly any ships get through to us. Malta is used to being besieged, and now we are used to being bombarded. But our stocks are running low, and we are hungry for food and fighters and petrol. Last month the Spitfires came, flown in off carriers. Now the Navy are trying to bring more fuel and ammunition for them and more food for us. The Germans and the Italians will stop them if they can, for they know that without them we cannot go on.
Operation Pedestal, August 1942. The last great attempt to run a convoy from Gibraltar through to Malta. The enemy have bombers and torpedo bombers all along the route. We have 14 merchantmen, one of them a tanker, escorted by battleships, carriers, cruisers, destroyers. Or we had when we started. Of our 14 merchantmen, only 5 reached Malta. One of them, the tanker, the Ohio, sinking and lashed between 2 destroyers. 9 merchantmen, 4 warships, 18 aircraft are the price we've paid for this landfall. But now Malta can live and fight again.
Operation Hercules, the reduction of Malta, has failed. And now German strategy throws its full force into the third plan, to break the Alamein line and drive across Egypt to the oil fields of Arabia and Asia Minor. In all this long battle for the Middle East, oil has been the one strength we have never lacked, and oil has become the god of war, without whom we cannot fly or drive or fight. Here it comes easily to us, but not to the enemy who has to drain his small supply from Europe and carry it across the Mediterranean to his desert forces for the last round in the Middle East. Here in Cairo, a miracle has happened. Rommel has been stopped, and in the autumn of 1942, we are planning our third and strongest winter offensive. In this attack lies our last hope of defense.
You can tell something pretty big's brewing up when Winston Churchill looks in on you. The old man would hardly visit the Middle East just now for the fun of it. And he's been changing the high command around too. They even say the three services have promised to fight on the same side in future. At GHQ now, we've a general called Alexander, an admiral named Harwood, and an air marshal, Tedder, all on speaking terms.
Our strategy now is built on an army 160,000 strong and an air force of 1,500 planes. In the desert, the ground and air commanders, Montgomery and Cunningham, combine their two headquarters for a single effort. As the new army prepares to march, the Desert Air Force prepares to fly ahead of it.
You build up a plan like an aircraft out of bits and pieces that all fit together to give you what you want. What we want now is to deny Rommel the force to stand up to the 8th Army, and we've started that already. 201 Group is briefed to shoot up every enemy ship it can find in the Eastern Mediterranean and bomb the sea routes to Rommel's front. This is the first part of the plan. The next part of the plan is to bomb the enemy's North African ports so that he cannot unload those ships that do arrive.
A gang of the U.S. Air Force found itself in the Middle East when they were wanting bombers here. So we stayed on, and now we do the mail run to Benghazi most nights with the British. We take off in the afternoon and land back next morning. It's kind of a long round trip, but we're getting to know the way by now.
While the heavies attack Benghazi, our medium bombers are sealing up to Brook and the last of the little ports towards the front. That's the third part of the plan.
Rommel writes, our petrol did not arrive. By October, less than half of Rommel's supplies are getting through.
By October, the next part of our build-up is ready for action. Now we have better close support planes in the desert than the Luftwaffe, the 4-cannon tank buster, a fighter bomber. Now we have a force of medium bombers that flies all day across the enemy's lines and breaks up his concentrations as they fall. Now we have Spitfires and a fighter's strength to shoot up the Germans on their own runways. The day of the Stuka is over. Now we can write a different history in the desert.
The bombs go down. The fighters stand by for their last patrol as night falls. And two opposing armies share the peace of the desert.
We'll meet again. Don't know where, don't know when, but I know we'll meet again some sunny day.
The date is October the 23rd, 1942. The place, El Alamein.
Middle East Joint War Communique number 8. The 8th Army, with strong air support, attacked last night.
Communique number 9. Operations were covered by strong fighter sweeps and little enemy air opposition was encountered.
Communique number 10. Fighting continues.
Communique number 28. The Axis forces in the Western Desert, after 12 days and nights of ceaseless attacks, are now in full retreat. Their disordered columns are being attacked by our land forces and by the Allied air forces. Up to date, we have destroyed more than 260 tanks, and our air forces have destroyed over 300 aircraft in air combat and a like number on the ground.
This year, the desert journey goes faster and further. Mersa Matruh, Tobruk, Benghazi, El Agheila, Marble Arch. In December, the 8th Army passes through Mussolini's triumphal gateway into the province of Tripoli. and with them an advance wing of the Desert Air Force. This year we have the air transport to carry our force forward. This year we'll have Christmas in Tripolitania. Exactly 3 months after the Battle of El Alamein, the British entered Tripoli, Mussolini's capital in Africa. The Middle East is safe at last. Mussolini's empire is ended here in the desert, where the Roman Empire was built. O mighty Caesar, dost thou lie so low? Are all thy conquests, glories, triumphs, spoils, shrunk to this little measure?